Hi, in this video you will learn the best chess strategy that will help you find the right moves in almost any chess position. I'm Igor, international grandmaster and coach from the Remote Chess Academy, and without further ado, let's go ahead and see how it works in practical examples. Let's think about the position like this. A very standard practical position which may appear in various openings, and it is white to play now. And before I just show you how to apply this strategy, let me ask you to think about this for a moment. How would you play here as white? How do you think? What are the moves here that you would consider to be worthwhile? And anyway, just think about different options that white has here. Even when I checked this with computer, I see that even computer engine is somewhat actually confused. It shows a number of options. It suggests queen to c2, the queen can also go some other square, like the rook can be played to e1, or the pawn can be exchanged there on d5, or maybe pushed forward to gain some space. There's also e4, open like advancement in the center, or potentially you can play b3 and fianchetto your dark squared bishop on the b2 square. All in all, you can see that there are plenty of options and they all look decent. And this is a very common situation in a game of chess. So how would you find the right move in a position like this? And here comes the strategy that I'm going to share with you. It is called the principle of the least active piece. And it states the following. In any position, find your least active piece and improve its position. It's as simple as that. So instead of all the options that we considered previously, let's just focus on this single principle, finding the least active piece and moving this exact piece. So what is the least active piece in the white's position? First of all, we can see that there are a number of pieces that are already active. They are taking part in the game, those minor pieces on the third rank. And we also have a bunch of pieces on the first rank which are not really very active. And even though if we look at those pieces on the first rank, we can still see that the kingside rook at least participated in castling. So at least one move it played already in this game. And if we focus on the white's queen now, then you can see that the queen, even though it's still on its original square, at least it has some squares where it can possibly go to. So it's like not totally passive. And if you pay attention to the white's pieces on the queen side, such as the bishop and the rook, you can see that they are totally passive, meaning they haven't done anything during this whole game and they are not doing anything right now. And that just brings you to the conclusion that these are the pieces that needs to be activated in this position. Before you can bring the rook into play, anyway, you gotta move your bishop, move it out. And that brings you to the logical conclusion that in this position you need to activate your bishop. So as you can see, we were able to narrow down the vast variety of the options for white to just one idea that you need to follow. You need to activate the bishop. There could be a few ways of how this can be done. In the actual game, white played pawn to e4, which opens up the diagonal for the bishop and therefore enables white to play bishop g5 on the following move. Let's check what happened after that in this game. Black captured the pawn on e4, because the following move was pretty interesting. At this point, after all of the exchange on e4, black make an identical central advancement, playing his pawn to e5. And here there was an interesting tactical blow that white found out in this position. Can you find it? It's a little combo that helps white win the pawn. And even though it's not winning the game right away, still this is enough to get a winning advantage. It's the move bishop takes h7. And after black recaptures, white takes the bishop on e5, and here we can finally see the idea behind the white's combination. After the move queen to h5, white is double attacking the black's king and the knight. Therefore, black has to give the piece back, and white ends up with an extra pawn. So white has more active position, an extra pawn, and that is enough to have the winning advantage. It has been a long game after that, so we will not analyze the entire game because that's another topic, but if you would like to see the whole game, you can find the download link below this video and you can see the game for yourself. Here's another game. The white player is Alokhin, the 4th world champion, and the black player is an amateur player. Here it is black to play. Let's just apply the principle of the least active piece once again here. How would you play here as black? Well, we know that you need to find the least active piece and improve its position. Similarly to the previous game, black has those bishop and rook standing in the corner doing nothing, and therefore it would make sense for black to play something like bishop d7 and then bring the rook into play, and he would be doing absolutely fine. However, instead of that, he played the move pawn to f5. Now it is the white's turn, and let us apply the principle of the least active piece for white now. You see, that's the great advantage of knowing such general principles, because you can apply them for any position. Not only in the opening, in the middle game, in an end game, for almost any position you can just follow this single guideline and you will always be playing well. I hope that you now got it, that the white also needs to bring the rook into play, and the logical move would be to play rook to e1, attacking the black's queen, and white is doing absolutely great here. However, instead of that, Alokhin played another move. I'm sure he knew that rook e1 is a good choice, but he decided to set a trap. He played bishop to c4. And actually black overlooked the white's threat. He played knight to e4, which allowed white to make the pawn advancement, pawn to d6, which is check to black's king, and therefore it forces black's reply, king to h8, king must move, and at this point there is a killer move for white. Can you find it? It wins the game on the spot, and it's also interesting to mention here that it was a simul on 32 boards. At least I see that this board was 32nd, if I can understand the game description properly. So it's pretty amusing that Alokhin could find such brilliant tactical shots even in large simultaneous games. White here played knight to g6, and the reply is forced, and here comes rook to h3, and this is checkmate. The king is attacked, and it cannot go back to g8 because this square is controlled by the bishop. So, brilliant finish of the brilliant game by Alokhin. And here I would like to make just the one last note here. Principle of the least active piece is universal. It works in huge quantity of different positions, but still you cannot follow it unthinkingly. You still have to evaluate the position, because there are also some other rules that can work in another situation. Actually, in total, there are 7 key chess principles, and principle of the least active piece is only one of them. And that's why recently I've created the course called 7 Keys to Victory, because again, there are 7 fundamental chess principles. So always consider the exact situation, do not fall into opponent's trap, but still, if you keep in mind the principle of the least active piece, you will be able to find the right moves very, very often. Here's the next game. Now let's see how the principle of the least active piece works in an endgame. And after that we'll wrap it up, and then I have one final cool puzzle for you where you can test your skills. But let us first analyze this position. It is a game between two not very famous players from Hungary. It is black to play currently. What do you think about this position? How would you proceed here as black? At first it seems like black has a superior position. He has those advanced pawns on the queen side, pretty cool. And also white has different weak pawns all around the board. And still it's quite unclear how can black break through. White covers everything. So how can black make any progress? And let's just recollect the principle of the least active piece. Let's have a look at all of the pieces that black has, the king, 2 rooks, and the bishop, and think from those pieces which one does not take part in the game. And that is the king, which is a very typical thing, because oftentimes in a middle game you try to hide your king and it does not play active role in the battle. But in an endgame, it is time to use it actively, and therefore, following the principle of the least active piece, when you approach an endgame, it's time to bring your king into action. And this is exactly what black did. He played king to d7, and on the following move, king to e6, and then all the way forward to f5. Now you can see how great this king becomes. Now it attacks the white's pawn on f4, and even though it is protected right now, still white has to keep his pieces there to keep this pawn protected. And also, let's see if white would do something. Let's say he plays rook to a4. In the game, he played another move, but lost the game anyway. So here black can just continue using his active king on the king side and create some problems for white there. He can push the pawn to g5. And now after that following exchange on g5, that forces white to go back, which is exactly what black wants to achieve. And then after the following exchange, the black's king makes brilliant career. It goes forward to e4. Now it's quite a great march of the black's king back from e8 and all the way forward to e4, where it now attacks the white's pawn on d4 and white is defenseless. After the d4 pawn is captured, then black will probably capture another pawn on e5, and that is totally winning for black. So here we have just analyzed how the principle of the least active piece works in an endgame. And as you can see, it is a really universal rule which you can follow every time. And now let's go to the puzzle where we will be able to test your skills. And here is the puzzle for you. It is white to play. It's the game between Ninette and Bojan, not very famous players. Alright, so let's start thinking here, because the first move I'm gonna show you, but the second move you will need to find for yourself. So even in this seemingly crazy unbalanced position, we can still apply the principle of the least active piece. And we can see that currently the white's pieces of the king side are not taking part in the game, and therefore it makes sense to bring them into play. This is exactly what white did. Computer here suggests another move. He suggests moving queen to c4 and then going to d5, going after black's rook. Probably it's good as well, but I like the game continuation more. It wins as well and it's more impressive. White played bishop to h3, bringing bishop into play and attacking black's queen. However, it seems like white overlooked something, as black can simply capture white's pawn on a4 and even bring the queen closer to white's king, so it seems really dangerous for white. However, white has prepared something, and I'd like to ask you to think about it. There is a winning continuation for white here. If you can find it, then please write down your solution below the video in comments, and after that you can download this game with comments by clicking the link below the video. So by the way, all the resources that I've mentioned in this video, all the games that I've shown in this video, you can find by clicking the link below the video. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, and most importantly, follow the principle of the least active piece and win your chess battles.